another episode of the How's Your Ground Game podcast. Joining me via satellite is Birdman himself down in Vero Beach. I'm Damoon up here in Brooklyn, and we're doing a late night episode. Late for me.
Late night, not meaning that it's like R-rated.
No.
It's not like Cinemax late night. It's
No.
like
just not. It's not natural lighting today.
Yeah, it's a little darker, and the topic may get a little dark as well. This might be like the Empire Strikes Back of episodes. A little darker, a little, a little something to it.
There's some. Speaking of Empire Strikes Back, there's some new Star Wars stuff coming out. There's another season of Andor coming out, I think. Did you watch?
I didn't get into the first season. I know that they're gonna totally fuck up the Mandalorian. I know that.
It took a hiatus and they're bringing it back, right?
As a movie, not as a series.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Because what I read is their past 2 or 3 movies have flopped, so they need to win at the box office. So that's already a winning franchise. So they're going to package it as a film, not as a series.
I feel like there was when Star Wars went to Disney, it was really nice to get more content because Lucas, he kept it pretty tight. But yes. I think now they're just milking it. Like it's
well, it's that guy. I think it's Dave Filoni, who's like an absolute Star Wars fan nut. The guy knows everything, and I think he was the right guy to take over. And Jon Favreau do it all. But I mean, they're also doing so many other things.
We're doing so many other things.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think I don't know, and they're trying to make everybody happy with these shows.
Right.
If you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah. And which is why Disney's latest movie is an absolute flop.
What was it? The Cinderella? Snow White?
Snow White. From what I'm reading, it's an absolute disaster.
Yeah. I think the trailer was one of the most downvoted videos on YouTube ever or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just they just rewrote the story and they complained that the 1937 version is so out of touch. 1937, come on. It's almost 100 years ago. It's so out of touch with today's mentality.
I mean, we'll just go with a different story then.
But then don't call it Snow White. Make a new story.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Go with just make a new story. Yeah.
This is what I read. Some people are pissed off at is the 7 dwarfs are CGI instead of hiring 7 actors. So now the dwarves are all pissed off because it ain't working.
Yeah.
Hey, what the fuck? This is in our wheelhouse.
Right. There's probably
we've been waiting for this movie. And now you're going CGI?
There's probably not too many roles that are written for small people.
No. This is like they're waiting for this film to be remade, right? Yeah. There's 7 lucky winners in this movie.
That's right.
No, we're going CGI.
It's Snow White and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Those are the 2.
Yeah. Fuck movies, man. I'm sick of this shit.
All right.
Here's a show for you to watch.
All right, listening.
Dope Thief.
What's the? First of all, where do we see it?
Apple Plus
Apple TV,
Apple, Google. I don't know, whatever it is. The one with the Apple and the plus sign, whatever that's known as.
Yeah.
To me, it's the one in the right-hand corner on my TV. That's all I know.
What's this? It's called Dope. What?
Dope Thief.
What's it about? That someone's stealing drugs?
Yes.
It's funny, it's dark, it's serious. What's the?
Oh, it's serious and it's starting to get kind of dark. But it's like you first watch it and it's like, wow, this is like the greatest. You steal someone's drugs, they're not going to call the police.
Right.
But what if you steal the wrong person's drugs?
You wish they'd call the police.
Yeah, you're done. So yeah, it's very interesting. Ridley Scott is like a big time director producer. It's his production.
Yeah.
And what I like is it's called a limited series, not like a seasonal
Okay, so it's just like they're doing like 8 episodes, and it's like a short run.
And it's done.
Yeah.
And it's done. That's the story's done. I love when stories are completed in one shot. I don't like waiting 2 or 3 years, right?
Well, a lot of times they don't know if the show is going to be renewed, so they kind of have to write the series in a way where there's like a cliffhanger for the second season, but you don't know if the second season's coming back.
Might not come back.
Might not come back. There was an old show on HBO. I think it was called Carnival. It was like, it wasn't black and white, but it had like a very dingy. It was about like a traveling circus in like the 1920s, like during the Dust Bowl.
Yeah,
and it had some like weird, magical religious stuff going on in there. Really interesting show, but it never got renewed. And then just the first season was just left on a huge cliffhanger, and it's just like, okay, that's it. Now you got to just walk away.
I saw the greatest one season that never came back was called Taboo.
Oh yes,
with Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy, yes.
A great season, and then they're gone because he's so busy. Yeah. Him and his dad wrote that show together.
Yeah, and I think they wanted to start it, and then COVID happened before they could start season 2, and then that was a great show.
Great. I mean, it was totally set up for a second season.
Yeah.
You know, going to America and everything, and
you're spending a lot of time like you know, setting up the character, and you know, he plays a really cool role in that show.
Oh, it's such a great show, so different than anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't see miniseries as often anymore, where it's just like 8 episodes.
No, because it's such a risk to try anything new. That's why there's remakes. Okay, you know, they remade Roadhouse. Why? Because it worked 30 years ago. Hey, it's probably going to work again. We've got the script. We know how to do it. So let's just do it again with new people, because you know that younger people will relate to.
The superhero movies, there's like however many Iron Mans and Hulks and
they just come up with a new script that's a copy. Like how many Star Wars: A New Hope, the first one?
Yeah.
How many times have they reused that script?
Of the
original Star Wars.
Yeah.
3 times. Yeah. Nobody wants to take a chance with that kind of money because it's investments, it's accountants. You know, do you want to take a risk on a show that unproven?
Right.
Well, hold on 1 second. I got a dog that's chewing on I don't know what. Hold on. Hey, get out of here. Get out of here.
It's the Deuce?
The Deuce, yeah. The Deuce is just he's full of it today. He's gonna get a whooping.
The Deuce is loose.
The Deuce is loose, and he's gonna get a foot in the caboose if he keeps it up.
What's going on in the world of jiu-jitsu?
Just I got a clinic coming up on the April 5th, which just may air after that. It's 2 weeks.
Nice.
It's a 4-hour, and it's fundamentals no one has ever showed you.
Okay. Can we get a sneak peek? What's up?
Well, there's a commonality in things I do.
Yes.
And I don't ever talk about it. And when I'm rolling, I try to work from the inside out.
Okay. What does inside out mean? Like inside out in terms of position, inside out in terms of how your body works?
Let's just analyze this. The easiest, the most digestible illustration is a single leg takedown.
Okay.
You start with the high crotch, right? So the knee between your legs is down, the outside foot is standing. I'll switch that up and down and I'll switch to grab around the leg, turn 180 like a sweep single, and put my hand to the mat for connection, right?
Yeah.
Started on the inside, work to the outside.
Okay.
So it's all based around that kind of, not necessarily technology, but that kind of theory of working.
Come up and then you turn around from the outside. Come up.
I start interior, right?
Yeah.
You know, everything's in tight, right? What if everything's outside?
There's too much space.
Too much space, too many handles. You know, the underhook battle. There's a lot that could go wrong. I can give up more than I get if I work just on the outside. So I like to get control on the inside of things. And I have different perimeters depending on what position and where I am, that what's inside and what's outside.
I got you.
So, yeah. So the perimeter and the pivot point of that circumference constantly changes, no matter depending on positions and placements.
Where the inside is and where the outside changes as you move, changes as you go through position.
Yes, yes. So if you want it to be, it can get very complicated. I try to keep it very simple.
Okay, and that's interesting. It's going to touch on the topic we're going to talk about today. But question for you: at what point in your jiu-jitsu, experience, did you move away, or let's say move towards, instead of thinking about what moves do I know from here, did you start thinking about kind of like more theoretical in the moment rather than, what recipes do I know?
When I was a purple belt.
And do you remember kind of what caused that change?
I felt like I had been marooned on an island.
In what? Yeah.
The way it was comfortable for me to roll, because I was older than most of the people I trained with. I had a very bad shoulder at the time. Okay. And a lot of things I couldn't do, and a lot of things I had to do, which most people saw as incorrect. Right?
What's like an example of that for
like people? On the bottom of side control, I turn away from people, not towards people.
Right.
Okay. That's incorrect. I'd get yelled at for that.
But yeah.
So that's the way I had with a bad shoulder. That's the way I have to hide things. So I did it on both sides, right?
Yeah.
Just because I'd get more reps and I got better at it, and it works. I do it all the time. I still do it. But I started rolling very differently than everybody else. If you look at Jamie, if you look at Renzo, those are bigger guys, top pressure guys.
Yes.
Now I could get top pressure, but I can't get it the same way they can. I can do a pressure pass, but I can't do it the same way that they can. So I had to start building these mechanisms that gave me the things that they had a little more naturally.
To work for you.
To work for me.
Interesting.
Because at purple belt, the brown belts, everybody hard on you is looking to kill you.
Right.
Blue belt, you're a little safer. But at purple, and everybody below you, we had all these MMA guys who were white belts or blue belts, but they were, just out of college, 225 pounds.
Yeah.
They're not going to let some shit like me pass their guard or finish them. So they're going to give all of their strength, speed, athleticism into, snapping me in half.
Right.
So how do I keep somebody like that from smashing me, right? If someone's bigger and stronger than me, I got to build a mechanism to stop that, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I can't do it now. I can't make myself stronger in the middle of a roll. Can't make myself heavier, right?
You got to work with what you have.
You got to work with what I have. I can't hide like, Jersey Mike subs inside my gi and just start eating real fast, get a little heavier, a little weight on.
No, but you made a good point there. As an upper belt, people talk about athleticism in jiu-jitsu, and I think around blue belt for a lot of people right now, with what's going on in social media and YouTube, there's a heavy emphasis on athleticism and fitness in jiu-jitsu. When you're an upper belt and you're going through an open mat and you're rolling with 8, 9, 10 people, each of those people, you can't afford to lose any of them. You're expected to beat all of them.
Yeah.
If you're a blue belt and there's one brown belt or one black belt on the mat, you're giving it your all in that role, right?
Yeah.
So as you progress, you're older, you have more wear and tear on the body, and also the target on your back gets larger and larger, right? So
yeah,
you can't rely on just your body to do the work.
And then, Jamie had me teaching a lot of those classes. And as the instructor, you can't let these guys, the techniques I just showed, it can't fail when I roll with them.
Right. You have to show them it works.
It's pressure to make sure that it works every time.
Right.
So I had my little, bag of mechanisms that I could use to help me out on these techniques, whether it's trapping something or creating a different angle or where my hips land in relationship to the two of us would always help me finish it through. And they just said, okay, it's just a technique. They didn't know it was like months and months of trial and error to find that.
Right. What works for you? What combination of things comes together?
What I have to do to make it work on you is tremendously different than what you have to do to make it work on me.
Right.
Even though you're a blue belt and I'm a purple belt.
Right.
Or you're a white belt, I'm a purple belt.
But just because of the size difference.
Yeah, it's because of the size and age difference.
Right.
Right. So for me to make it work efficiently, to make it look clean and like it's no big deal, yeah, I have to do a hell of a lot more work. Not just for the technique, but the preparation and the drilling of that technique. Even today, I have to do so much work on things to get these guys. It's like, oh, well, yeah, it's like, no, it's constant. It's every day I'm analyzing, looking at things. How can I make it streamline this? How can I make it more efficient?
Because your jiu-jitsu has to get better faster than
everybody else's.
To make up for the difference in the athleticism, the age, the size, the strength.
I've been calling that the X factor. People walk in, everybody has an X factor. You had that guy from the circus, right?
Yeah.
He had this double jointed and he gets very flexible, and then you got Kadeem, is it?
Yeah, big guy.
Kadeem, big guy, athletic, young.
I'm going to share a story about Kadeem. I've never experienced this.
I really like Kadeem. He's got a great mentality for jiu-jitsu for a bigger dude.
He's a wonderful student. He's large. He's 240 pounds maybe. I use a lot of I turn the head a lot with my head. So when I'm on top, whether I'm passing or mount, or a lot of times I'll use my forehead against a person's like jaw or chin to turn the face. And when you're on top and you can put a little pressure behind that, it's a very powerful way of locking the hips. Kadeem was able to turn his face against I had a tripod and my forehead was against his cheek. And he was able to turn his neck and push my whole body off.
Hey, he's probably got a 17-inch neck. He's
So yes, absolutely. It's you're right. There's an X factor. How do you
I'm listening.
What?
Keep talking.
We need to have those experiences are real. Those people exist. Those X factors are real. We need to be able to overcome them with our jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
And part of the topic we wanted to discuss tonight is that X factor isn't always accounted for in the cookie cutter technique that we learn in class.
No, it's not.
So as a white belt, blue belt, you go through, you don't even know the technique yet. You're just still learning how to move your body and how things work and how things connect.
Yeah.
And your body is relatively younger. I mean, no matter where you start, by the time you're black belt, you're about 10 years older, right? It's 10 years.
Absolutely, yeah. Easily 10 years.
Easily 10 years. So at a white belt, blue belt, you can get away. You have a little bit more athleticism. You're happy just making the move look like what you drilled, right?
Yeah, you're not housebroken yet.
Not housebroken.
Right?
Yeah.
Your 8-year-old dog poops in the house. He gets a whooping. The 2-year-old, it's a puppy.
All right.
Right?
Yeah.
You get away with you don't know any better yet.
Right. But purple belt and on,
you're purple belt, you're housebroken.
You can't rely on just doing the technique as you saw it. You need to start incorporating the X factor into your formula for making that technique work. So if this guy's freakishly large, if this guy's freakishly flexible, if this guy has amazing balance, if this guy is small, a lot of people, I've been working with some smaller women in the gym, and leg locking them is really difficult because there's no leg. There's no leg to knee bar. Your tolerances change tremendously depending on the body, the temperament. So how do we go about, learning jiu-jitsu in a way where we're working on the mechanisms to accommodate for the X factor rather than just I put my hand here, I put my foot here, and we get a sweep?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the position, but I like I said, I'm gonna be talking about this for like 4 hours in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And it's, like I said, some of the principles I always work from the inside out. Okay. I start with distance. I control from a distance. And I hide big things inside of small things.
Okay.
These are some of the principles that I try to think about when I'm cycling, because I don't think of anything as a technique, right? I know there's the ecological system that people talk about now.
Yeah.
Where there is no moves, it's just theory, and you kind of float through jiu-jitsu. And I don't know if I buy into that. And I'm not buying into techniques that have names now.
You don't like koala guard?
So I don't know. I've heard I did something, and John said, so that's I've heard that called vegan mount. Vegan mount. Nothing's gonna make me not want to do something more than calling it vegan.
Right.
You know, not that I have anything against people who are vegans, but it's not me. So when something is named, it becomes kind of final, doesn't it? Right? It means it's done.
Yeah.
Okay. When it's done,
it's specific.
And do you tend to kind of pull it apart and reinvent it once it has a name?
No, you're gonna have to rename it.
Well, no, you have to. It becomes kind of final. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I have, in the same thing as you would have a scissor sweep, right?
Yeah.
I see it as 4 different mechanisms that I use. Okay. If I switch one of the mechanisms of the 4, it's now an armbar.
Right.
Okay. Then if I'm in the armbar and I switch 2 of those mechanisms to something else, I can take the back. So I have a collection of mechanisms. Okay. And I can put them together in different groups and in different orders and have substitute mechanisms to change the direction, because I believe in the forks in the road, right?
Right.
Jiu-Jitsu is a series of forks in the road. So if I take my 3 or 4 mechanisms down the left fork, okay, and something goes wrong, and I can change one of those mechanisms to do something else, that's easier than changing the entire game plan of where I'm at, right? I'm going to scrap that technique and come up with something completely different.
If just so everyone's on the same page, when we say mechanism, right, is it fair to say that we're just a mechanism is one way of using one part of our body or a grip or a contact to affect the other person's body in a certain way?
Yeah, a mechanism could be a hip escape, a collar grip, a sleeve grip, a knee shield. Those are 4 mechanisms.
Right.
Okay. Some of the mechanisms get a little more elaborate. Okay, but a cross collar grip, right? I do the 4 steps.
Yeah.
Right? That's a mechanism. It's not just grabbing the collar indiscriminately. It's grabbing something with deliberate, with purpose.
Right.
Okay. Something that I always say, right? You get it or you get away with it.
Yes.
So to get it, it must be explainable and it must be repeatable. So if I can make a collar grip, a cross collar grip, have it be explainable and repeatable, that to me is now a mechanism. It's not just a grip anywhere. It's going to be, another thing I say is persistent placement. I'm going to really want to be able to get it almost in the exact spot every time. And that makes it easier for when the next mechanism comes in.
And whenever you have that collar grip, you know you have a certain amount of control and movement, lockdown. You know you can push and pull a certain amount.
I know what other mechanisms work when the collar grip is right there.
Right.
Okay. I know how much force I have to put on it. I know where my weak points are. I know where I don't have base. I know where I don't have balance. All right. That's the idea of persistent placement, because I'm so familiar with the environment just because that grip is in the same spot. Okay. It just makes it easier for me to pick and choose other mechanisms for a better outcome.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just to like explore that a little bit more. You know, we talk a lot about in any kind of sport. We talk a lot about muscle memory, muscle memory, muscle memory, and maybe persistent placement. A little bit of that comes down to muscle memory.
Yes, absolutely.
But I want to differentiate that with something you were saying about having multiple mechanisms. The persistent placement is muscle memory, but the scissor sweep shouldn't be muscle memory. Meaning,
no.
From my perspective, you can put the hand in the collar, but at that moment, you have to take a look at the position. You have to take a look at what your opponent has at that moment, see what mechanisms are on the board, and then make a decision.
It's so dynamic.
Right.
If I'm going against an animatronic robot that's not fighting back, yes, I can do it exactly like the textbook.
Right.
And never lose. Right. But if someone is fighting back, you know, they're never going to do what I really want them to do.
Right. They're gonna move their, even if they don't move, they can shift their weight even without moving. They can, let alone, you know, step up with a foot you don't expect, or lean
they could
back
slip.
What?
They could just slip and fall on their hip and throw everything off.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right?
Right.
They could make you know, pants could get caught in my foot.
Right. Yes.
Anything could happen. Okay. That's why it's always I fight mechanism to mechanism.
The X factor that we were describing could come into place, right?
Yes.
You could be rolling with someone who has really wide hips and long legs, and their base goes on forever and tries. You might there's no scissor sweep to be had because the mechanism is broken because of the X factor.
Yes.
So you got to go. Your formula changes.
Yes. Then you just regroup and replace.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I've been thinking and teaching for a bunch of years. And I'm trying to be more vocal with it with my students now. And they're appreciating it and starting to understand it.
How do you tell your students, if you were talking to an upper belt, purple and up, how would you tell your students to start thinking that way? Meaning, what can a person do in a role to kind of change the mindset and start looking for those things to identify mechanisms? Or, you know what, let me take that question a step back, actually, because mid-roll is always a hard place to start. When we're drilling a technique, right, and you and I think, both teach pretty fundamental techniques. And I think we generally teach one technique, not a combination, right? It's not like a sweep into a guard pass into a choke. We generally, here's the choke, or here's a sweep, or here's a guard pass. So we're drilling the guard pass, or we're drilling the sweep. We'll talk about scissor sweep since we're already on the topic. You're a purple belt. You've done the scissor sweep for 5 years. You've seen it, 10 times, 20 times. What should you be thinking about when you're drilling that scissor sweep, when you're making your grips, so that you can start getting your mind ready when you go live to improvise and start working the formula rather than just imitating the recipe?
Well, it's funny because we did the scissor sweep a couple weeks ago, and I started on our feet.
Okay.
I said, okay, grab the person cross collar. When they did, pull them off balance. Try to get to their back. Okay. Now grab same side. Okay. Now grab cross side. Now grab same side. And the common thing is, it's harder for them to do anything when I have a same side grip. Okay. Now I want you to grab same side grip and grab the sleeve cuff on the opposite side. Okay. They can't do anything then. Okay. On the deck. In the guard. Okay. Grab same side, grab the sleeve. Right? Now they're isolated. Once they're isolated, we can set up a frame that they're going to ride on. And then we're going to build the mechanism and motor to move them. Okay. But first you have to learn how to isolate. It's that the first grips, the initial contact. Because if you don't get that right, is it worth learning the rest of it?
No.
Because if I can't learn to hold your arm across your body, how can I ever armbar you?
Right.
Okay. So I'm finding that I have to find ways to get people to truly understand why these first grips are so important. Okay. And they can see firsthand, like, wow, this is very difficult. I can't really, I'm under control, and there's no easy way out of this for me. Okay. So we start with that. Once they understand, okay, this works, let's bring it down and let's set up the rest of this.
Okay.
So it's a roundabout kind of, in a way, weird thing, but as white belts, when you don't know anything else, it makes sense.
Do you think when you're learning mechanisms, it's important to know? You did something interesting there. I sometimes verbalize. I don't make it part of the drill, but do you think it's good for students to know, or good for us to know when we're learning, what things don't work at the same time we're learning the things that do work? Meaning, the reason why I use this grip is if you use this grip, it can go wrong this way. If you use this grip, it can go wrong this, or you don't, the control is off. The control is off, like Goldilocks method.
Yeah, well, in a way, but I want to get people away from, why shouldn't I just grab cross collar every time because I'm that much closer to a choke?
Right.
Okay. So I kind of have to dispel that, is what I'm doing. And it's just like, I personally have a theory that your first grip should always be same side no matter what.
Right. We discussed this prior, yeah.
You never initiate with a cross side grip because arm drags, everything, they live in there. So I'm a firm believer, in having it for a long time, that any of your initial grips are always same side, and you can work from there. But white belts and blue belts, I don't get the collar chokes because it takes me too long to get to the grip. So I want to start with that grip. It just gives me a head start to what I really want.
Yes.
So you have to trick them into having patience. And patience, to me, starts with the initial grip setup. Because if you have grips where you're fighting to maintain control, patience goes out the window, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Because now you're scrambling to get back into what you think control is.
Right.
So for white belts and blue belts, that person needs to be more isolated for them to understand they have control. You and I can appreciate the nuances of small things and know that we have control. But newer students, they're not there yet. So they have to have the, building block, the bigger Legos, not the little tiny Legos. They need the big Legos to let them know they have control.
Got it.
So that's personally how I've been showing it. And they've been getting it. If I show like a radical, drastic way, okay, let's work from here.
They can see where the control is easier to maintain and where it's.
Yes. It's like, oh, there's so much better to do this.
Right. How can we, okay, now we're out of drilling, we're in live rolls. How do we set up those experiments for ourselves with techniques that we're working on personally?
Game plans.
Okay.
Right. You go in saying, I'm just going to work scissor sweeps today. Or I'm just going to work the grip setups for the scissor sweep. Right? Get it, frame, release. Sit up, do something else, come back, grips, frame, set it. Keep going back to that. Because I'm doing privates with a black belt now. And I'm teaching him a lot of no-gi stuff, like just on grips. And I said, it's a cross grip and you flip your hand. I said, just do that for a couple of weeks and just get good at that. Because once you have that, I'm leading him into the dirty Russian.
Right.
Right? Okay. So it's about, that it's a cross body, cross wrist grip, palm facing you, right? Thumb pointing away from you.
Mm-hmm.
And but you have to, it's that first grip and the flip. You have to be like on it. Because if you're good with that, you can just pummel back and forth with that. And once you have that, the rest of the grip kind of falls in place a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. But if you try to just do it all at once, you're going to have really, really mixed results. and it's going to be frustrating. And how much of that counts as persistent placement? How much of that gets into your muscle memory?
I see.
Yeah, so I never tried to complete the entire move or technique when I started doing it live. I tried to pick elements and just go for them and get really good. The single mechanisms. I tried to make each single mechanism, because that's really why I like the mechanism system, because I don't have to work on the scissor sweep. I can just work on that collar grip.
Right.
And then I can work on that sleeve grip. And I can do that anywhere and get better at it. So I'm getting mechanism grips all over the place. Now, maybe one day I get 2 of the 4 mechanisms drilled, and the next day I'm doing something else and I get the other 2 drilled really well. And then I start putting them together. Once I get the individual mechanisms, really down, close to the curb, tight, nice.
And that's something we've also talked about before, is when you get those mechanisms down and you keep your game pretty fundamental, a lot of those mechanisms repeat.
Oh, they're all over the place.
If you get your collar sleeve grip, how many combinations of guard techniques are there starting with a collar sleeve grip, right? Yeah. Like you said, you just shift a little bit from the scissor sweep and now it's an arm bar, right?
Yeah. I changed one of the mechanisms. It's an arm bar.
You change one of the mechanisms, it becomes a arm drag to a back take or something, right? It's just
it's there. If you understand the mechanisms and, like, I'm going to say the language, right, of what we're doing and the little roadmaps we kind of create by repping these things and knowing, like, okay, I'm going for the scissor sweep. I know where I know what my fallbacks are. If I'm trying that live and I don't know what my fallbacks are, what do you think my success rate is going to be?
It's not high. It's actually one of the things I love doing with my students is when they're working a technique, I give them 3 of the 4 mechanisms they need, and I just keep one off the board. And a lot of times, some of them are able to improvise, but a lot of times they get lost. They're like, why isn't the technique working, right? Yeah. And if you just try to replicate the move over and over again, it's not difficult, to take one piece off the board. So you need to be able to look at what you have and be like, oh, you took that off the board, but I can just do this and this, technique exists.
Yeah. That's where the patience comes in. You got to slow it down, right? And be able to analyze things. It's real time. So if you can think and analyze really fast, hey, move fast. But you're better off being patient, working, more slower, just work at a better pace. I'm not gonna say slower or faster. You need to work at a better pace where your brain and your body are moving in the same rhythm, right? Where you'll be able to, where it's ready, aim, fire, not ready, fire, aim.
Right. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of ready, fire, aim out there.
Some people don't even get to ready. They just fire.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just fire, right? You got to get it ready, aim, fire. That's got to be the sequence when you're executing your techniques, whatever you're doing, or just your mechanisms. It has to be in that order, right? And you start switching that order around because you want to get there faster, right? Have you ever, when you explain the technique, brought the discussion of how fast it has to occur into the conversation?
No.
Have you ever heard any instructor do that?
No.
Then why does everybody drill things so fast? Somebody needs to answer that for me. Why do you attempt it so fast?
You know what? When people think they can do something fast, they think they know it well. I think that's where it comes from.
That's sort of like sex, right?
There you go. There you go.
5 guys just threw their phone against a wall. Those motherfuckers are talking about me.
It's the guys that are under 30, right?
I feel sorry for your girls, guys. I feel sorry for them. If you roll like you roll.
But I think that's a really important distinction. Like, and again, going back to the initial point of as you're an upper belt, means you've been training longer, your body's taking more wear and tear, you're losing your athleticism, right? Unless you start training when you're 20, by the time you're a purple belt, most purple belts I know are always, taping their hand up, their wrist up. They have a knee sleeve. They have a, it's if you want to be a brown belt, black belt who's still beating up the 25-year-old blue belt, you need to stay ahead of them.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get older. The 25-year-old is always going to be 25.
And now let's take that a little further. I'm 57.
Yeah.
I need at least another 25 years on the mats.
How
do I get there?
It's not going to be by doing everything quickly with athleticism.
Yeah, I'm not getting more athletic. I'm not getting stronger.
Right.
I'm going in the other direction, right?
Right.
So let's just forecast 10 years ahead.
Yeah.
Right? I'm 67 years old. Should I start thinking, wow, how am I going to roll in my 70s? I better think of something. Or should I be thinking about that every day for the past 10 years?
Oh, exactly. Yes.
Or should you be thinking that when you're a blue belt? Like, okay, I'm in this for the long haul.
Right.
I have to reanalyze. I don't want to, be a brown belt who's already had 2 ACL surgeries. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be that guy.
No.
Deuce, what are you chewing on, buddy? Oh, you little motherfucker. Get in there. Get in there. Get in there.
I think we all know what it's like to be a blue belt under Birdman now.
Yeah, that puppy's a fucking blue belt. Oh my god.
But yeah, that's it. I think there's a trend right now of people in their 40s and 50s trying to reverse age and trying to get their bodies back to where it was when they're 20 and 30, which is great to attempt, but the reality
it's foolish. You can't do that.
In the opposite direction, and
you have to embrace what you have now and work with it.
Right. And get ready for what's coming later, right?
Yeah. Be prepared, right?
So slowing the game down, starting to think, and you need to slow the game down if you're going to start working the formula rather than the muscle memory, right?
Yes.
Right. If you're a 25-year-old blue belt competitor, you can just grip it and rip it, right? You can just get your thing and then you pull and you scissor sweep and you do that.
Yeah, but all those years of prepping for that are now wasted.
Because you're 40 and the body doesn't work anymore. Yes.
Right? Why relearn things? That's what I'm saying is you should be thinking about this early on and just being more efficient and more honest with yourself, right? Dishonesty, lying to yourself is the biggest roadblock in jiu-jitsu. Guaranteed. That's the biggest roadblock in jiu-jitsu. Not being honest with who you are and where you're at.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's why you get the the purple belt, the brown belt who's getting caught by the blue belt, and he starts coaching him mid-round, right? Because instead of thinking about how he's not where he needs to be to compensate for the difference in age and athleticism, right? He's just accepting that he's just the old coach now, right?
Yeah.
Gotta get ahead of it.
Yeah, it's like the guy who, there's a new gi release and he orders an A2 and he's an A3 closer to an A4. Well, no, starting in April, I'm going on a diet and I'm going to be, by Memorial Day, I'm going to be an A2. Okay, tell you what, in July, I'll buy that gi from you because you ain't going to fit it ever.
Half price.
Yeah, I'll get that for half price, right? There's always those guys or, I'll be fine by competition time. Or, I would never do that in a competition roll. I just do that here in the gym.
Right.
Right. You'll absolutely do it in a competition roll.
You play how you practice, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you think suddenly you're going to do things perfectly in a competition when you're half-assing it in the gym every day, you're not being honest with yourself.
Right.
Oh, come showtime, I'll be perfect. I know I know. I'm just half-assing here because I'm just waiting for the live rolls. Right? I'm just going through the motions with these classes because I'm a 3-stripe blue belt. I know more than anybody. I know more than you. You know?
Saw this on YouTube.
Yeah.
Famous last words.
Yeah, I have a tape and shoelace sponsor. So don't tell me.
All right. Yeah. So slow the roll down. Try to replicate components rather than going for the technique every time.
Yeah. And be analytical and honest about your rolls.
It'll save you trouble 5-10 years down the line.
It will make things easier tomorrow even. It just makes it becomes more profitable, right?
Yeah. Better return on your investment.
Yeah. These young guys who are cooking the books, right? Telling themselves how good they are at everything. Eventually, somebody wants to look at the books and say, I don't have to explain this to you, Dan Union. You know.
Dan Union doesn't make appearances on YouTube.
No, he's not internet friendly.
He's not internet friendly, no.
And he shows the books to no one.
Nope. Very cool. All right, one more time. When is the clinic happening?
April 5th.
April 5th in Vero Beach at the Wash and Fold?
At the Wash and Fold. I may or may not do a couple little live streams during the day.
Okay.
It's 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
All right. Well, it's on Saturday or Sunday?
Saturday.
All right. We'll look out for it. Maybe we'll share some clips on the YouTubes. Also, we got some good feedback. Thanks everyone for tuning in and watching the competition matches. We had a chance to narrate. We'll try to get some more of those up in the future. I've been working on getting a little John Madden style, so we can put some.
You got the pen.
The pen. We can use the pen.
I'm
People
down
know
with
what
that.
we're talking about.
I'm down with that.
although Dwayne was saying how embarrassing is that now that not only do we commentate the match, but we're gonna exactly highlight and zoom in on everything that people do wrong. But
now you put up Ashkat, and Dwayne's. Now, what were their feedback on the reviews?
They liked it. And I think they were surprised at how constructive we were.
Okay, they weren't upset or anything, right? Because I think we really did highlight the good stuff, and we're behind them. We want to see them
absolutely
improve. So
absolutely,
but we're going to be honest still.
I think Ephraim's is going to be up there too. And I said it in some of those videos. I'll say it now. Good on them for sending us matches where they had something to learn from, not where
absolutely
not the highlight reel, right?
That's what I'm talking about. Being honest with yourself,
right?
That's where it starts.
Yes,
something like that. Hey, tell me what I need to know.
Yeah, I think also when you look at some of the matches, it's just sometimes in the moment you feel like you got your butt kicked, and then you look at it and you're like, well, I just made one mistake, or just one thing didn't go my way, or if I would have pushed a little harder here, and it's a lot closer than you think it's going to be, you know?
Always.
Absolutely. All right. Any last thoughts for the people out there?
Just, wake up. Come on, pay attention. That's what I'm going to say. Be honest with yourself. Stop feeding yourself to bullshit.
Be honest. Slow it down. Use your mind.
Slow it down. Be honest.
Awesome. All right.
Pace yourself. Not even just slow it down. Pace yourself. Slow the other person down.
Right.
Slow the other person down.
Get your grips.
Fundamentals win fights.
There we go. All right, guys. To everybody, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good night. We'll catch you guys next time.